from the Southern African Liaison Office, and I'd like to welcome you all to this public virtual dialogue on understanding Mozambique's political dialogue process and its implications for strengthening civil society space in Mozambique, as well as the broader implications for the region. Today's session is public, so you'll notice that it is being recorded as well as possibly live streamed. It will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel sometime after the session. So please feel free to share that in your networks for those who might be interested in our work or what we'll be unpacking this morning. As always, if you have any questions about this meeting, feel free to email us at invitations@salo.org.za. These details will also be pasted in the chat. This dialogue forms part of a three-part series with Mozambican non-state actors and regional partners. Today, we will take a closer look at the national dialogue process in Mozambique and consider its wider relevance for Southern Africa. Our discussion will touch briefly on the work of the Technical Commission for National and Inclusive Dialogue, the role of civil society in shaping this process, the regional connections to similar initiatives across SADC, and the lessons for strengthening solidarity and inclusive approaches to peace building and governance in the region. We are joined today by an esteemed panel of speakers whose collective experience across research institutions, faith-based organizations, youth platforms, and human rights advocacy offers valuable insight into Mozambique's national dialogue process and its wider relevance for strengthening civic space and promoting inclusive governance in the region. The first hour will be for speakers to give their presentations. Following that, in the second hour, we will open up the discussions to the floor. Please use the raise hand function if you have any questions or contributions to make, and the chair will acknowledge you, or you can also contribute in the chat. To avoid any unnecessary interruptions or mishaps, the video and audio functions will be disabled. So for each speaker, one of the Zoom hosts will prompt you to unmute yourself and turn on your video. For those who have not, please ensure that your name and surname are displayed on the screen, or identify yourself when you make your contribution in the second hour. Without wasting much of your time, I would like to thank you all for joining us today, and I will now hand over to my colleague Munjotsi.
Thank you, Sam, for I think that eloquent setting of the tone and just clarity on what we seek to achieve with the dialogue. And I know that many of us have been part of the first part of these discussions on us trying to understand the situation in Mozambique, and particularly with regards to the dialogue. And I think that colleagues from Mozambique who again give us a sense of why we are here in terms of why this dialogue, and by it try to find ways of how do we strengthen what we do as non-state actors to ensure that our voices as non-state actors are on the table, but also the Mozambican civil society broadly in terms of how they are shaping Mozambique's tomorrow. We know that this dialogue has implications for Mozambique, first and foremost, but also for the region. A lot of lessons that we can take out of this process, but also a lot of lessons that we can bring into this process, the dialogue process. But we are seeing clearly from the developments, I think all of us watched with serious concern the developments in Tanzania, post-election violence, and the brutality that a lot of young people met on the streets of Dar es Salaam, the streets of towns across Tanzania. And obviously, a lot of the solutions that have been put on the table are the issues of dialogue, that there needs to be dialogue. People need to talk. We have seen that in Zimbabwe in the couple of years, in the couple of elections from the 2008 problematic election that led to a government of national unity. And we are happy that Takura will share some experiences from across the region and from Zimbabwe, but also just help us unpack the Mozambique process. But clearly, it seems like the conflicts, particularly post-election conflicts that we are seeing across the region, across the continent, dialogue is seen as a big solution to those conflicts. Is it the case? Is it what we should be investing in? And those are some of the things that we need to sort of unpack and see what are the building blocks of sustainable peace, sustainable human security as we try to move the region forward. Mozambique is unique because I think the dialogue emerged from a post-election conflict, but at the same time, the northern parts of Mozambique have been engaged in a very prolonged conflict. Its characterization has been contested in terms of what exactly is happening in the northern region, particularly in Cabo Delgado. And so this dialogue happens at a time when Mozambique is trying to address the post-election issues and many other issues. So the thematic areas, which I think colleagues will touch on, will show you that this dialogue has been set as broad as it can be. The question is civil society participating? At what level, what degree are they participating? The citizens of Mozambique, at what role and what level are they participating? We know that the first phase of this dialogue process has just concluded. And so we want to hear from colleagues from Mozambique where things are, the level at which they're participating, but help us understand the dialogue process itself. What does it look like? What is it? How is it supposed to be rolled out? And at what levels are the entry points? And to start us off is obviously a very strong voice in Mozambique, David Javier Fado, who is with the Youth Parliament of Mozambique, and it's a non-governmental organization that seeks to mobilize young people. And I know that they are engaged in a series of activities to try to make sense of this process, but also to ensure that their voices are on the table. And my brother David, take us through. We know that the young people were the ones who were on the streets of Maputo, the streets of Beira, and many other places post the October 2024 elections, protesting around many issues. Which we hope that they are on the table in terms of the solutions. But give us a sense of where you are, the level at which you are engaging with this process, what it means to you, what are your hopes, but more importantly, for us who are outsiders, what can we bring to the table? Thank you, my brother. Come in.
Thank you, my brother Munjozi. And I would like also to thank the SALO for this particular invitation to join on this webinar just to discuss and share our thoughts and our experience about the current dialogue in Mozambique. But allow me also maybe to start from your last thoughts when you were saying that the youth went to the street to protest during the post-electoral moments in October last year. But apart of that, I would like to highlight that in Mozambique, the young people in several or so many years went to the street just to protest for their well-being, for their rights, and also for inclusion and participation on the decision-making process. And with what happened last year, we had more than 400 people killed during the post-electoral moment, more than 2,000 people arrested and also injured by the police. But we note that on this particular situation, the young people, we as young people or Mozambicans, we are right because we are also protesting for the truth, literal truth. And from January, no, February to this side, we note that the political parties, the governments, and other, we are joined just to make sure that we are discussing, just to make sure that we need to find a way to build peace in Mozambique. That's how come they launched that dialogue, the national dialogue, and the same as you know, it's compounded by 21 members, the court, but a part of that, there are 10 thematic groups, which also compounded by 10 each one. And the main board of the court, which called the technical commission, we have there 3 representatives of the civil society organizations. As we know that Mozambique, we have more than 34 million citizens, and the court or the technical commission, it's not enough for all of us as youth or as young people. We also took some actions on the ground just to make sure that our voice should be heard. But allow me also to highlight that this particular dialogue, a part of looking for what's happening during the post-electoral moment. For example, if you look, going through the thematic groups, we have 10 about natural resource, about the electoral law, about the constitution, about economic affairs. We have so many thematic groups where we are going to discuss about all these topics. And as young people, we are able also to share our thoughts and our experience. One of the thematic group also is about peace and security across the country. But we know that since 2017, Mozambique is facing several challenges with insecurity at the northern region, specifically in Cabo Delgado province. And now as young people, what we are doing, first we'd love also to call all of you a call for solidarity with what's happening in Mozambique and also across the continent. And going through the topic that you're also being invited to discuss about, I would like also to highlight that this is a huge and a great opportunity for us as young people to join and to make our voice be heard. Because if we go back to time, we'll note that in Mozambique we had so many agreements, and most of them, we as young people, we didn't attend, we didn't share our thoughts. And for this particular one, we see as an opportunity where we can join, where we can discuss, where we can also share our ideas and make sure that our voice will be heard. But also, many people were also skeptical about the process and even about the model that is being used for the auscultation particularly. And that's how come we as youth, the young people, we launched recently a platform called COPJ Deny, COPJ Deny, which means a commission for youth observation and participation through the national dialogue, where we are organizing sites, events, auscultations, trainings, just to make sure that the young people across the country, all of them, even abroad, can also share their thoughts about what's happening in Mozambique and looking for the different thematic groups. And that's how come, part of that, we also appealed the court, the technical commission, about how can they proceed to make sure that the auscultation won't fail, and they also achieve the result that all of us we were looking for. That's why recently we organized a conference, and this particular commission, COPJ Deny, we have currently 55 civil society organizations led by youth across the country, and the Youth Parliament, AMGISH, Inclusion, Criar Mozambique, those one, they are coordinating this platform, but we have so many organizations, and all of them, they are working with different thematics. We have organizations which are also linked with environment, with human rights, so political affairs. So all of them, they have a space where they can share their thoughts, and we feel that this particular platform is also a side opportunity where the young people can join, where they can share their point of view. And what we are trying to do is, first, we are trying to build a consensus as young people about what we want exactly. And at the end of the day, we're going to submit through the technical commissions and also the thematic groups what we think, our proposals. And when I was talking about that, the situation that most of us were skeptical about how the result will be achieved. For example, the debate were around why, if Venasio Mondlane, if Anna Mola is participating on this national dialogue, but luckily, me as young people, as a youth also representative, I'm happy because I note that all those political parties in Mozambique, they are joining, even outside the official court. For example, we know that the new created political party from Venasio Mondlane, they're also taking some auscultation through the country, and they shared recently their proposal with the court. And is that what we are looking for? As young people, we are taking some roadshows, some auscultation, all those 55 organizations within that platform, they are taking different actions, even singularly or as a group. And we think, or we feel that it's a momentum where we can gather with different stakeholders, not only in Mozambique. That's why we aim also to take some webinars just to make sure that the young people in Mozambique, across the continent, or in the diaspora, they can join as guest speakers, or even to share different thoughts to make sure that our voice will be heard. But I would like also to highlight one point, that in Mozambique, or maybe across the continent, we have great and beautiful laws. The only problem is how those laws are implemented, because most of them, they are not respected. Even the electoral law, which it's one of the main problem which took us for this particular dialogue. I think, it's my own point of view, I think that law, if it's respected 100%, we won't have all those problems. So a part of going to the dialogue just to discuss, I think that first of all, we need to be honest, we need to be humble as citizens or as decision makers. And I'm saying that because if we didn't respect the same law, we'll go through dialogue to dialogue just to make sure, no, we are discussing, we are building peace, we are gathering the society just to overcome the challenges. We were talking about now about what's happening, for example, in Tanzania. Most people are killed, but now they are talking about dialogue. And I think one of the mistakes that also our leaders our leaders are making is they forgot also that we as young people, for example, in Mozambique, we had the local election in 2023, which also were not fair. We had the last general election last year in October, which were not fair, because as observer we shared and we see a lot of illegality on the ground. So and now the question is, a part of discussing, a part of the dialogue, which or what strategies are drawn or will be taken just to heal the society. So that's why even through the COP29, we don't have the mandate to decide, but we think that we can do a lot. First, to conscientize the society. Second, to also heal the youth, just to make sure that we went through all this situation, but now we can also try to look forward and shape our future, the future that we want as young people. Continuing, I would like also to share that those webinars, for example, the course likely we have some youth there who are also sharing their ideas through different thematic groups. But as civil society, we are doing a lot just to make sure that the same society will be included. So, and one of the things that we're trying to avoid, for example, it's for the upcoming meeting or events, it's also to take them or to organize them within hotels, conference meeting, but we're going through the neighborhoods where we can sit with them, to discuss with them. And mainly, we are also trying to be focused on the place where the protests take place last year. For example, if we look what's happening in Maputo, what's happening, I mean, in Maputo, we have Matola, Mashakeni, where those places, we had so many young people who went to the streets, many of the shops were looted, we had also many people arrested. So we should also, starting from the basement, where we can hear their voice, and that's why what we're doing now. And if you ask me if how can I rate from 0 to 10? Now the same dialogue, the way that dialogue is conducted, maybe I can give 8 or 7. The remaining 3 which will be maybe next year, but seeing that there are some points which probably we need also to organize it as well.
Thank you, David. I think quite comprehensive, and help us sort of picture the methodology in the dialogue process itself. And I think you touched on a number of things: the skepticism around the effectiveness of the methodology itself, but how many of the actors are on the table. But also interesting to hear you say that. There are those that are inside the official process, but there are those that are outside, and all of them are trying to work for space to shape this dialogue process, so that ultimately the outcome of the dialogue process itself will advance Mozambique's interests. And I think you touched on issues of solidarity that I'm sure my brother Takura will touch on a lot as we move. It's quite fascinating to hear that young people have created this platform to be able to mobilize the voice of young people, because I think that 2024 was mainly about young people. The people that we saw on the streets, it was mainly young people. And it is in that spirit that I know that I was supposed to move to Sheila, but I thought that it's important that I bring in Francisco here. And Francisca, I know that you're doing a lot of work again with young people. And Francisca is with the Mozambique Association of Youth for Gender Equality and Education, AMGIS. And it's a pleasure to have you here. And I know that we met a couple of weeks back in Maputo, and it was quite I think for me, a learning lesson to just hear the passion that you and many others have to try and find a solution to the challenges you are facing. I think that David has laid the ground for you to come in and give us a sense of what you are seeing, what you're observing, what you are thinking, and fascinating also to hear that you are part of this other platform that has been described by David. So yeah, Francisca, you have the floor. Please give us your thoughts, help us understand this process, and hear what you are thinking as well.
Good. Hello, Josie. Hello, everyone. It's such a great pleasure for me to join you and to be part of this. I guess this is a unique opportunity that young people have, especially for young women from Mozambique, for young people from Mozambique. I think this is a unique opportunity. I don't know, looking back to the 19th to 2010 and also 15, we can look that the role of young people have been actually marginalized, as well as David Fardo mentioned. And I guess this is a unique opportunity because last year and this year we had an opportunity to see the potential of our young people, but also we can testify now that young people of Mozambique, of SADC, are ready to lead the path, but also are ready to lead such a process as this one. And for me, it's historic to be able to build and to be part of this dialogue. There are many challenges because, as you see, if you look at court, you can see that you have. I will talk more about the technical groups. We have actually around 10 groups. So sorry, I mean there are 15 actually, 10 groups. And from those 10 groups, we have the first one, which is regarding constitutional matters. The second one regarding electoral matters. Then we have public finance. We have another one on economy and development. Then we have public administration and the politicization. Yeah. We also have another group for natural resources. We have the 7th group that is regarding defense and security. We have also another group dedicated to discuss about justice and rule of law. The 9th group is for reconciliation and national unity. And the last one is for the decentralization and also this concentration. And the most curious thing about these technical groups is that all those groups they actually I will say most of the members, they are not young people. And not when you look to the court also that is coordinating all the process, you will see that the majority are not young people. But the face that was fighting in the streets, who went out to process so that this process could be possible, they are young people and young women. So I think that now this is the biggest challenge because we have the court, we have inside the court the technical groups, which also have experts, people who have been working for so many years in these different topics that I have mentioned. But the strange thing for me remains that we have a few young people and young women in this process. So I think that this is a possibility, we can lose a great chance here to make the changes that we can make now, actually, in terms of revision of the all laws, even of the constitution, I see a question here. What is the mandate of the technical groups for reconciliation? I think I will have an opportunity to answer.
Francisca,
Sorry?
what we want
Yes.
to do is we have a session just on the discussions. That's when you can look at the questions. For now, let's
All
just
right.
yeah.
Oh, all right. Perfect. Perfect. That. Thank you. So I think that we are losing, actually, I mean, it's a possibility we can fix it now, but also I think that we should fix this right now because we still have time for this. I feel that young people are not really engaged in the whole process. Why? First of all, because we don't know very well what is code, what is happening there. Okay, and young people, they are seeking for change, they are seeking for inclusion, but also they are seeking to see new faces in the political history of Mozambique. But also, I think that there's another issue, which is economic politics, that it's not been discussed very well until now, because what young people also are looking for are economic opportunities. And when you look to the technical groups, you see most of them are people who are experts, and probably they, in terms of economic issues, they are already really prepared. They are not unemployed people. They are not people who are facing all these challenges. I'm not saying that if we include young people as experts, they will not be people who are not employed, but I believe that it's more easier for young people to trust the process if we have also new faces leading. But what's good in all this process for me, it's that the court have included civil society organizations in those all groups. So you do have in each group members from political parties, but you also have one civil society or two civil society representatives, which is good. But also, when you look to the auscultation process, I still feel that unfortunately we still have the faces of the other generation, the eldest generation, which is not bad. But I think we can improve, including more faces of young people who are already in that process, because those young people there and they are available to work. And I also think that SADC region have an important role here. South Africa held the the G20, and I think that unfortunately issues as Cabo Delgado situation were not mentioned. So I think that we as civil society, we have an important or crucial role here to make pressure so that the different dialogues that are happening in the region take into account what is happening in other countries across the continent and also the SADC region. I know that South Africa have been held the citizen-led dialogues, and I think it's a great opportunity for us as Mozambicans to learn, but also I think South Africans also can learn from Mozambique what is good from this process. And I think, for example, that now young people are getting more united to organize themselves, to lead the path. And David Fardo has mentioned, for example, the COP Deny, that we all are coordinating for organizations led by young people. So this is good, but the platform have more than 40 organizations who local are also leading, making auscultations. But how can we ensure that our voice in Mozambique, as we speak in Mozambique, can be listened and maybe replicated in South Africa and in Swatini, Namibia, Botswana, and in other countries such as Tanzania, Malawi, that can also take this as a movement, not only as an action. Because when you look, for example, for the issues of security in that group, we cannot ignore that Mozambique has some countries that have been worked on with to ensure that the security issues between the countries are all taken into account. The second point that I would like to approach is that we have a law that it's law number 1, 2025. This law, it speaks about the dialogue compromise, but it's not that public known. And I think that we should now try to massive, try to make it more simple for the young people, as we did, for example, with other process, to ensure that that citizen that is in the community can understand what's happening and how this changed their own life. I think this is a unique process, and this law must be known. The people who are leading this process must be known. I think also that young people should also take this as an advantage. I think also civil society can build strong alliance to ensure that this law is not just one of those laws that we have just created. And I think that this law, it's historic in Mozambique, because it shows the power of the civil society, of citizens, and the role that they can play to make changes. And now I'm not just speaking about young people, I'm speaking about the civil society, uh, the whole organization of civil society that can make change. And we still have time, because the technical groups have 12 months to work. Its roles, it's make the auscultations, to make the report of the auscultations, to make proposals to the court coordination that can be taken into account to make the final proposal that will be submitted to the president board, in order to be taken to the discussion in the parliament. So I think we still have time until December, I guess, is 14, to submit our contribution. So I will advise young people, I will advise the civil society of SADC to join us. Please do not leave Mozambique, do not leave young people of Mozambique alone. Join the movement. Let us build alliance to ensure that this process can be a unique opportunity to build a peaceful SADC with different approach that can ensure that the future of young people, it's not just led by the interests of political or international people. International interests in geopolitical discussion, but also can be led by young people of Africa who are actually seeking for change, who are seeking for new faces. They are seeking to lead because they are ready, because they are capable. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisca. I think that was eloquent and quite a strong argument on why young people must be on this table, because I think there is clarity in terms of what needs to be done. And the good thing about listening to you is that I know that you guys will not wait for permission to be on these discussion tables. You are creating the tables and bringing chairs and sitting on the tables. And I'm excited, as I keep telling you, that I'm excited about the urgency that I see in young people in Mozambique. And I'm quite hopeful that most of the things that you're highlighting, you are building the alliances with other young people across the region and begin to shape the future of this region and the continent broadly. So thank you so much for the inputs, but thank you more importantly, for the work that you are doing on the ground, and hope to engage more to hear what this platform for young people is doing and what we can do from where we are. I think you touched on very important issues, the role of civil society, the opportunities that exist that civil society should take advantage of, but also I think the importance of simplifying this process, because I think you were clear that this process has a lot of questions, and it needs to be simplified so that ordinary citizens will be able to understand what this process is about, but also how does it tie to their bread and butter issues? How does it address the issues that made a lot of you as young people to go to the streets in October last year? And so thank you so much. Let me move very quickly to another very strong voice on the issues of Mozambique, Sheila Nganale. And Sheila is with Human Rights Watch, quite a lot of the colleagues in the Human Rights Watch have been on these platforms before, but Sheila has just joined recently and she's responsible for Mozambique. But Sheila has been, before that, has been working on these issues incessantly. And we know that for those of us who are in the region, the Mozambican Times, where she was in the past few years, has been a source of information and knowledge for what's happening in Mozambique. And we know that she was one of the people at the center of that. But beyond that, she has been in these processes for quite some long time. And Sheila, I wanted you to just take from where the young people sort of left us. Give us your thoughts on the process, but also help us begin to shape where is it going. Do we have a bit of optimism of where the process is leading us? And yeah, please, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Munjozi, for the introduction. And also thank you, SALO, for the invitation. I welcome this opportunity to discuss Mozambique's ongoing national and inclusive dialogue process, which comes at a critical moment for the country's political stability and also for the protection of civic space. The process has meaningful potential, but it also presents risks if transparency, inclusiveness, and safeguard for civil society are not guaranteed. Well, the establishment of the Technical Commission for the Dialogue and the launch of the nationwide public consultations represent a formal step toward a structured political process. The framework presented 4 levels of consultation, central, provincial, district, and diaspora, provides an ambitious roadmap. However, the process requires far greater public clarity about Commission's mandate and decision-making methods and accountability mechanisms, as my colleague Francisca was mentioning in her presentation. So this transparency that is not seen now must be seen and continuous. It must be detailed and also accessible for all Mozambicans, to be clear about what is really happening on this process. We also have civil society engaging, which is encouraging. Yet, this willingness must be matched by genuine guarantees. I mean, equal access for all organizations, including independent or critical voices. There must be protection from reprisals and safe conditions for journalists, women groups, youth movements, and rural communities to speak openly. And also the participation of a civil society needs to be meaningful and have a real impact on the final proposals rather than serving as a symbolic inclusion. as we have seen in the past dialogues that happened in Mozambique, because this is not the first dialogue. I can say that often after the elections, Mozambique goes to a crisis, which usually culminates with a dialogue. And most of the times, the participation of the civil society is symbolic, but we hope this time this is a real inclusion. As Human Rights Watch, you must have seen that we have documented a restricted civic environment in Mozambique, characterized by intimidation, surveillance of activists, restrictive laws, and abusive persecutions. And during the post-elections demonstrations, we saw many activists, opposition leaders being killed. We saw thousands of young people being arbitrarily detained. So these conditions directly undermine the ability of civil society actors to participate freely. But for the dialogue to be credible, the government must ensure freedom of expression, access to information, and government also must guarantee the protection for human rights defenders throughout the entire process. And also we need to see a process of dialogue where there is a discussion about justice, and also justice for the victims on the post-election period, but also accountability for those who perpetrated attacks against the people who went for the streets, people that were killed during this period. So for us to see a dialogue that is viable, we need also to see that kind of discussions. We need justice implemented after all this process. Also about the methodological tools outlined by the Commission, the literature reviews, public debates, thematic sessions, in-person and virtual consultations. We can say that they are positive in principle. However, they must be generally open, inclusive, and balanced again. We need to be clear about the criteria and about they need to explain how public contributions will be evaluated, systematized, and either integrated or excluded from the proposals being developed during this process of dialogue. And also, we see that while the dialogue aims for consensus, the fallback rule of three-quarters majority voting raises concerns without demonstrable independence and diversity within the Commission. The mechanism may privilege dominant political actors and dilute the influence of civil society contributions. Safeguards are needed to ensure that decision-making does not become a technical formality, making predetermined outcomes. The process also has a strong regional dimension across the SADC region. Many national dialogue initiatives suffer from similar challenges. Shrinking civic space, limited transparency, and a tendency toward controlled participation. But Mozambique now has the opportunity to model more open, participatory, and rights-based process. But this only will happen if the dialogue is conducted with genuine openness, robust protections for participants, and also sustained communication with the public. It has been also mentioned before that in Mozambique, the citizens, they are not very clear about what this dialogue process is for. So it all needs to be clear for everyone so that we achieve the outcomes that we wish. Also, speaking about regional, it's important to strengthen the regional solidarity. Civil society organizations across SADC can benefit from sharing strategies and insisting on minimal standards for participation, transparency, and human rights protection in national dialogues. The Mozambique experience will be closely watched by policymakers, diplomats, and activists across the region. So it is important to have other countries supporting and also participate actively in this process, as it can be a lesson for also their countries to when they have to be or participate or do kind of process in their countries. So in conclusion, I can say that Human Rights Watch encourages Mozambique's authorities and the Technical Commission to pursue a dialogue process that leads to concrete reforms, strengthens institutions, and the process must be transparent, participatory, and grounded in respect for human rights. Civil society should not only be consulted, but generally heard and integrated at every stage. As Human Rights Watch will continue to monitor the process closely and engage national and regional actors to support an environment where participation is free, informed, and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila, for that again eloquent presentation, and I think quite clear recommendations on how to strengthen the dialogue process, but also highlighting the role of the regional actors and but first unpacking the process, helping us understand together with what David and Francisca had put on the table, the makeup of the process in terms of what is on paper. And it seems there are many other questions, and I know that in the last dialogue we had said that we will try to bring court, but we know that the technical team, most of its members are not in Maputo, in Mozambique at the moment. So we struggled to get them, but we're hoping that on the last part of the dialogue, we will be able to have them. Clearly, we need to put our hands on the deck and try to help the processes, explain it, give clear briefs, and I guess civil society, David, Francisca, and many others have a need to have a strong base to be able to explain the process, but also push the court itself to invest more in explaining, raising awareness of what this process is and what it will do. And I'm sure that Tebuho, we don't have Borges as yet. We don't have the Reverend. Is that still the case?
That is still the case. That is correct.
Perfect. So what I want us to do is to move to Takura. So Takura Jangaja is one of the leading thought leaders in the Zimbabwean civic space for quite a long time. For those of us who have been following his writings, but also having occupied a number of spaces in Zimbabwe. He has been observing most of these dialogue processes and has been a part of the Zimbabwe dialogue process in 2008, 9. And Takura, you have heard from the colleagues from Mozambique. It's clearly a very critical moment for them, given where they are coming from and where they are trying to go. And there are a lot of pitfalls that they can face. I think you can sense a lot of concerns from the colleagues on the possibility of this process delivering what the Mozambicans are yearning for. And I thought that you would help us unpack first the concept of dialogues in the region as a solution, a panacea to the challenges we face. And what are the challenges? What can we do more to try to make these dialogues quite impactful? We know that it doesn't mean that the dialogue in Mozambique is the beginning of dialogues. There are many other dialogues that are happening at different levels across Mozambique. And clearly, when these processes come, they are so detached from those dialogues that are happening at local levels to the extent that it appears like it's just hanging somewhere there. That's the sense you get on this dialogue in Mozambique, but also married to the challenges we see across the region, and help us formulate what could be our role, both as Mozambican civil society, Mozambican citizens, the different political entities, but as the citizens of this region, because we talked about the connections between what happens in Mozambique and the general peace and security of the region and the impact instability has on other member states. We are seeing with Tanzania, as we said, a lot of colleagues from Tanzania who are moving into South Africa, into Mozambique itself, into Malawi, seeking asylum for security reasons. And so, yeah, please do come in and help us unpack these things. I know that is too many questions, but I'm hoping that you ignore them and focus on your input. Thanks, Sagora.
Thanks, Josie. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Quite clear.
Yeah, okay, that's good. It's a very complicated topic, mainly because I think in SADC we've had about, outside of Mozambique itself, we've had about 4 recently disputed elections that have led to some process of dialogue, national dialogue, and in Zimbabwe's case, a SADC mediated dialogue. I noticed that the Mozambican national dialogue is not mediated by SADC. It's essentially a national dialogue run by, I think, a commission. And I also noticed that it is only recently that the main opposition leader sent a representative to that commission or committee to be part of the dialogue. So, yes, there are big issues around and lessons around what national dialogues can be or are within the Southern African context. And when I said that there have been a number of them, I include Zimbabwe, I include even, surprise, surprise, South Africa, which actually also has an ongoing national dialogue, but it had to also form, based on its parliamentary results, a government of national unity. And then, of course, we now have Mozambique, and then we also, in part, will probably have Tanzania, depending on who is going to be involved in a mediation process, whether it's SADC, the AU, or the East African community. But there is a sense of inevitability about some sort of dialogue taking place also in Tanzania. But I'll go straight to the lessons that I learned about dialogues or national dialogues, mediated or domestic, internationally mediated or domestic dialogues. The first point is that elections themselves should be the epitome, the final endpoint of what a result of a national dialogue looks like. Political campaigns, political parties looking for votes, getting votes in a free and fair election is the sum total of a time-driven national dialogue. Election results should not be as disputed as they are within SADC. Every other election, including in Madagascar, is disputed, and unfortunately, in some of the disputes, it leads to military takeovers because of uncertain results, accusations of illegitimacy of ruling parties, and accusations of unfree and unfair elections. So I think the first key point I want to make is that elections are the actual sum total of dialogue, any national dialogue. Disputing their results and then embarking on mediated or domestically or internationally mediated dialogue is essentially a betrayal of electoral results of the electoral process. And that's something to get out of the way. But be that as it may, because of high electoral competitiveness within most Southern African countries, because the state is no longer just seen as a tool for development, it is also seen as a tool for material acquisition by elites and also by global capital interests, your Chinese companies, your American companies, European companies, and resource sort of like motivated minerals, resource motivated global capital, gas, oil, as is the case in Mozambique, Cabo Delgado. So we have had that reality of having disputed elections in a number of Southern African countries, with the latest being Tanzania and also Mozambique and also Angola. In Malawi, we almost had that, but thankfully the incumbent president accepted the results eventually. But the disputation does not mean that we cannot move forward, and we have to find new ways of finding each other as citizens of the region. And this is why what is happening in Mozambique, despite all of its assumed flaws, is very commendable. It's very commendable that colleagues and civil society partners, political parties are involved in this process. The outcome may not be fully known until next year, but at least there is that dialogue that is going on, especially when there's also a crisis in Cabo Delgado. So that's recommended that dialogues are always important, despite the fact that they should never, in the first place, occur after an election or because of an election. Because, like I said, an election in and of itself is the sum total of a periodic national dialogue where the people select leaders of their choice or should select leaders of their choice freely and fairly. But I think what we need to discuss more and more is why is there this growing tendency of elections being disputed? And this is a key lesson I have learned before I come to my direct Zimbabwean experience. I think the main reason why elections are now generally disputed, whether you're in Guinea-Bissau, where there's a recent coup that has occurred, or you're in Madagascar, or in Mozambique, or Angola, it's mainly because of a generational praxis shift. The voter of today is not the voter of 1980, the voter of 1990. They are younger, they are more energetic, and their values are less about either having a war of liberation background history. They're more about what is trending, what is fashionable, jobs, employment, and the like. But then incumbent governments in Southern Africa, a majority of whom are still former liberation movements turned the ruling parties, don't understand that there's a big shift in political expectations. So every election is quite literally now about change. Change, change, change. So anything that is viewed as part of the old establishment, whether by age or even by ideological leaning and technology, it tends to be rejected. And it also elections tend to be more about political catharsis or expressions of anger and anticipation of a specific result that doesn't actually quite end up the way a lot of young Southern Africans want. And hence the disputation of elections, and hence our susceptibility to military intervention in our elections or post our elections. But I know I have 10 minutes, so I'll also try just to be deliberate about lessons learned from the Zimbabwean uh, Government of National Unity mediation process. My involvement in that in 2000 after the 2008 disputed parliamentary and presidential elections was as a representative in parts of civil society. And what we noticed during the negotiations, because our Government of National Unity, by the time it was brought into existence by SADC in 2009, was essentially one that did not have agreements around what is the way forward. It was highly contested. Even the global political agreement, when it was signed eventually, it was still disputed by the signatories to it. And power distribution was still disputed. But from a civil society perspective, what we try to do, and this is perhaps a key and important point for our Mozambican colleagues, is to make sure that we focused on constitutional reforms. And I know that in the Mozambican process right now, there's a big debate on
I'm not sure if it's just my end. Takura, hello, Takura.
Let me try and turn off his video so that maybe.
Okay. Hi, Takura.
He's still with
Yeah,
us
I'm back.
in a meeting.
Sorry,
Okay, there you go.
sorry, it was.
Okay. Yeah, we
I'm
had
back.
lost it. Okay.
Yeah. These days, because of the rain, sometimes the internet is not so good in Harare. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, but
Yeah. So I think I was saying we then focused in the Zimbabwean context on, and I'll be brief now because of the intermittency of the internet. We then focused on constitutional reform, but we also then realized, because in civil society, in the Zimbabwean context, civil society also had a strong backbone from the labor movement. And we realized that in any negotiation about national reforms, national dialogue, governments of national unity, we needed to be very clear about our economic ideological outlook. And this is a very, very important point to make, and perhaps for Mozambican comrades to also take into account. We tried as much as is possible to push an economic reform agenda for the government of national unity, or even within the ambit of national dialogue, that was largely going to be social democratic. And social democracy here, it was quite literally a compromise between, what private business wants and what ruling elites want. And we had to be very careful about not upsetting the apple cart, because, like I said, our elections tend now to be not motivated by ideological values, but mainly access to largesse, access to capital, access to to wealth by both by individuals and also by global multinational companies. And so we tried as much as is possible to ensure that apart from talking about political reform, we were also going to talk about economic reform. And we tried to couch it in a people-centered sort of framework, where we would say, look, no matter your political differences as political parties, even after the electoral results are disputed, even if you come together and form a government of national unity, you have to have comprehensive economic reforms. What happened, though, is that we lost that argument. In fact, that debate, mainly because of global capital and of the interests of foreign powers, as will be the case in Mozambique. By the time you get to November next year, I'm pretty sure issues about gas, oil, and minerals, particularly what Trump has referred to as rare earth minerals, will come to the fore and become more powerful in your negotiations. So you have to be cautious about what capital wants and what capital does. And this was our mistake. We were not as cautious. We just assumed, look, if we say people-centered economics, social democracy, we never really looked at the methodology of how that would come about, even though we didn't have the capacity, let alone the time of going into economic details. But we learned a lesson that we should have brought the negotiations and also the government itself when it was formed to greater account on the economic way forward of the country, because after the government of national unity was formed, our economic expectations as we negotiated, as we contributed to the discussions, were completely thrown away. The Zimbabwean government, as is the case now, became more and more neoliberal. So it wasn't defending the people. It wasn't really dealing with economic needs of the people. It was the political convenience that became more important. And a key lesson from that as well going forward is that even after the negotiations, and this is the trite because negotiations begin and negotiations end. After they end, what accountability mechanisms have you put in place beyond your parliament, beyond your commissions? And to what extent are these parliamentary oversight roles and commissions roles more about the political parties than about the people? Because remember, once you have a negotiated government, you have a new elite, and that new elite has a new tradition. It does not have an obligation to listen to you after the negotiations have ended. So the mechanisms that you put in place for
Let's take off Takura's video.
are very important beyond the political parties. As a last point, can you see me? Okay. The last point I'm going to make is that if you are in a transitional period as a country like Mozambique is in, though it's not mediated by the international community, it's not mediated by SADC for now, you have to have your ideological, organizational, and capacity issues in order. It's not casual because it has a long-term effect, as has happened in the case of Zimbabwe, where we, at some point, we became a little bit too casual, just assumed it was electoral politics. But now we know the reforms that were undertaken by the government of national unity or via SADC mediation were not enough. And to this date, even in Zimbabwe, we still dispute our own election results because one side of the political divide is not happy, whilst the other is supported by private capital and also Eastern private capital, global Eastern private capital. So if you're involved in any negotiations or in any contribution to a political settlement, a government of national unity, remember that the political elites also have their own particular interests, and they are not going to always listen to you unless you have a strong, fortified approach to how you negotiate with them. Yes, elections are the final arbiter of such a government of national unity or the determinant of what happens with it. But essentially, there is no way you can trust the politician to always take up your interests or the people's interests into account. They're also competitors. They also want to be part of the state and the largesse. And this is perhaps something that we need to discuss at greater depth about how do we make elections less about the passage of time and more about democratic values. Because I've noticed even on social media, some people praise coups. A lot of young Africans are praising soldiers that take over militarily. Even the latest one, the Guinea-Bissau one, people are praising coups. And yeah, but it was just after an election. And then it also points to the fact that the election itself was probably meaningless to the people of Guinea-Bissau. And so if we have even the chance at national dialogue, we need to then ensure that we don't repeat the mistake of assuming elections are like electoral cycles, uh, for like time-based electoral cycles, where there is limited uh, appreciation of the voting process, almost like it's our turn to each sort of a process. So for the Mozambican colleagues, and in fact, even the Tanzanian colleagues, if there are any here, any dialogue process must work on how to make elections more meaningful and how to reduce the disputation around elections, because it's becoming too cyclical and too perennial, and it is also indicative of the fact that there's a new acceptance of undemocratic government takeovers such as military coups. I'll end there. Thanks, Njus.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that some very important anecdotes that you put on the table. The idea that elections themselves are the sum total of our dialogues as states and as a people. But I think you ended. I'm hoping that when you do your closing remarks, you hopefully give us a bit of snippets on solidarity in terms of what can we do. Did you have any experiences in the Zimbabwe dialogue process? How did you interact with the outside world, particularly civil society from the region? If not, what can be done from civil society in the region to support colleagues within Mozambique and all that? But I think you ended on a very strong uh, sort of wisdom snippets around. We cannot be casual about this dialogue process, that you cannot take it for granted. We need to be alert as civil society. We need to have a clear, strong, fortified approach to what we want to put on the table as civil society. And I know that colleagues from Mozambique who are here uh, are taking these lessons, that it's not just another process that has come and it will go, and it's an opportunity that you do not want to regret, because some of the agreements that will be made here, if we don't participate and put our voices, will have long-lasting impacts for us. I think the Zimbabwe process was a decade ago, but as Takura puts it, we are finding out that some of those things today, as a result of our inability to have been prepared adequately and to have been clear ideologically and also capacity-wise, to be able to be on the table meaningfully. So more coordination from civil society within Mozambique is an imperative. And also the idea that in terms of the long-term focus, you need to be clear that we want to make elections more meaningful and reduce on the disputations of elections. So 5 years, the next cycle of elections in Mozambique, what will the election look like after you have concluded the dialogue process? And the idea, how do we operate in an environment where most of our young people, I think someone had said it earlier, are more inclined to celebrate military coups and interventions. How do we marry that reality to what we need to do in this dialogue process? So thank you, Takura, for that. And colleagues, it was an honor to chair this part of the dialogue. I want to hand over to my colleague Tebuho to take us through the next phase, which is a discussion. So those who want to come into the dialogue, please raise your hands. Let's have a discussion. Let's have questions. Then we'll go back to the speakers and conclude. Thank you, Tebuho.
Thank you, Mojozi. Thank you very much for all of your hard work and sharing that first part of the session. The floor is now open, I guess, for anybody who has questions or contributions. You can use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. In the meantime, we have a question from Clara in the chat. I think it's Clara Grenhagen or Grenhagen. What is the mandate of the Technical Group for Reconciliation and National Unity? Is it supposed to do consultations and engage in dialogue in different parts of the country to inform the reconciliation agenda? I mean, is it part of their mandate to do external work to reach out to communities? Do we have any other questions in the chat? Can anybody see if anyone is interested in coming in? Okay, I guess not. I guess not so far. In the absence of that, I guess I have a bit of a two-parter. I might be repeating questions that have already been asked or answered. I'm sure some of the speakers have already touched on what I'm going to ask. But I'm interested in understanding what specific lessons from Mozambique's dialogue experience are the most relevant for other national processes in the region. Is there any evidence that countries in the region are learning from each other? How can SADC and regional civil society platforms support these efforts without undermining local ownership? You know, what SADC structures can be called upon, or should we be, or what SADC structures should we be looking at to facilitate dialogue processes? And I guess more pertinently, how relevant is SADC mediation truly? Given the camaraderie between states in the region, should we be focusing our attention on advocacy from the ground up instead of relying on political elitism not to act in self-interest or self-preservation? And I guess in relation to that, I also want to know, or would like to know, what elements of the national dialogue process, including the work of the Technical Commission, are most critical for building public trust and achieving meaningful progress. And yeah, where do the gaps lie? Where do the gaps remain? Is it really working? What reforms are necessary? How can civil society act to strengthen their influence within this process, particularly in contexts where participation is constrained and I guess civic space remains under pressure? And this is just a general question to all the speakers. In the absence of any other, oh, we have another question in the chat. Following up on Sakura, is organized labor represented in the groups? How do trade unions contribute? And that is from Carl Sunstead. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. I don't see any other questions so far. And besides the question to Takura, I think all of the questions were posed generally to all the speakers. So I guess what we can do is we can start in order of that the speaker spoke in. You guys can come in and possibly give your responses to some of the questions that have been posed, even if you may be repeating answers to the questions that I've asked. And then on top of that, maybe just round off with some of your parting shots. And then yeah, we will see if other questions pop up after that. Can we start with David? Is David still with us?
I think David has left. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Francisca?
Hi, I'll try to pick some questions, and I think first one will be regarding the technical groups. The question was, what is the role, what is the mandate of the technical group for reconciliation and national unity? If it's supposed to make consultations and engage in the dialogue in different parts. Yes, yes. That's the role, actually. That's the mandate of this group. It also have to collect the contributions of the different groups, such as religious groups, civil society, registered or not registered groups. We also have the private sector, women, young people, men, all the groups, to ensure that all the groups that unfortunately had some confronts during the protests can give their their opinion regarding the process. But most important of in terms of roles of this group is to make proposals in terms of what in specific actions and follow up should be done, because being inside the court means that this person that is in the group technical group have expertise in this area. So once they are experts, it's expected that they are able to collect the contributions and then systematize them and ensure that they are specific actions proposed. For example, they can make if they see that some of our instruments regarding peace and security or reconciliation, they are not very well aligned with the with the young people who are protesting. They can adjust that and submit to the court coordination so that the court can take it to the president, to the board of the president, so that it can take this contribution into account and then propose to the National Assembly to debate and discuss this in a specific way. This means also that they have a great chance to review institutions that regulate the national law regarding the election process. They have here the opportunity also to propose maybe the revision or maybe new mechanisms of dialogue. The dialogue between the court and the communities, but also between the government and the communities, to ensure that all these scratch, all these things that happened during the protest can be healed, because there are people who are still crying for their beloved ones, so we cannot ignore this. So I think this is one of the crucial roles that the court has. That's why has a civil society organization, I think we have a great opportunity here to build these relations, to heal people. We can do our part, our role, to heal people, to ensure that people can trust this process, because once you were elected as member of the court, but also as member of a technical group, it means that someone have voted on you. I'm talking about civil society organization, because they launched this announcement in public, so that everyone can vote, everyone can be able to be elected to be part of. So once you are elected, you have an opportunity to build something different. You have an opportunity to heal people. But I once again highlight that this is not just the role of the Mozambicans, civil society organization. It's all SADC that should be involved, because we know that our that this region, unfortunately, it's facing so many challenges in terms of political confronts between young people and the traditional political parties. So we have here the opportunity to change. So I'll leave the other questions for the other members. I don't know if Leko, you would like to me to address any other question.
No, unless you feel you've answered all the questions you want to answer, then by all means we can leave the rest of the questions to the other panelists.
No,
Or if
I'll
you
leave
want
it
to.
to other panelists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sheila's still in the room with us. Yes, she is. Do you want to come in?
I just want to add about the Commission's mandate. Well, the Commission's mandate is to organize, coordinate, and implement the dialogue. And it has the responsibility to conduct these public consultations within the country and diaspora, collecting, systematizing, and analyzing the submissions from all the citizens participating in that consultations. And after that, they have to translate these contributions into proposals for structural reforms. I mean, including constitutional revision, electoral laws revision, judicial reforms, security sector, administrative decentralizations, all the things that during the post-elections were being how can I say, were being put in on the table. They need to analyze and listen the contributions during this work of consultations and translate it in a specific reform. It also has the responsibility of preparing and presenting these proposals to the competent state institutions for further debates, validations, and potential legislative adoptions. And has what we were saying during all the presentations, the decision-making criteria, the how they will use all these informations is not clear so far. So I think it's needed to explain how they are working, how they will be evaluating all the contributions they will be gathering all this time, and how the criteria for excluding or integrating the contributions. So it's important to have the transparency that is not being seen now. Because we are speaking about political stability, and if transparency is not there, maybe we are not doing anything. So it's important to make the things clear. So this is the main challenge I see they have to really achieve the outcomes that are needed from this dialogue process. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Before we move on to Takura, there's just one question for you. Noting how some young people now embrace some military coups, is this a result of a loss of faith in the democratic process or a lack of understanding of the democratic process, i.e., not reducing it to a single event? Over to you, Takura.
Sorry, Tebogo. There's a question on whether Mozambique has a Bill of Rights.
Oh yes, as well. Maybe Sheila can address
But
that.
I can answer that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Go ahead.
All right, so I'll just deal with with first of all, Munjozi's question around solidarity. From our experience during the Zimbabwean SADC mediated GNU process, yes, there was regional solidarity. We would meet with, for example, comrades from the Congress of South African Trade Unions. We would meet with colleagues from Tanzania, civil society, because Tanzania at that time was also chairing SADC. We would also meet with the Namibian colleagues here and there. And then there was also the SADC Civil Society Forum, which was very important for putting across Zimbabwe's issues. And I think for the Mozambican colleagues, even the colleagues in Madagascar and in Tanzania, those platforms are still there. COSATU was particularly important because of its role in the ANC. It's still an alliance partner of the African National Congress, and therefore it could influence certain decisions within the ruling party of South Africa. And we also met with colleagues in the global north, particularly social democratic colleagues. We explained the Zimbabwean situation. And some of the colleagues that we met in the global north, we didn't meet them physically. We would write emails and write reports or via our civil society donors, try and influence specific sectors of their parliaments, whether it's the European Parliament, the British Parliament, or the Australian Parliament and the American Congress. But we also didn't have too much control over that in terms of seeking solidarity, because the colleagues in the global north tended to be more impositional than listening to us. But the colleagues in civil society in Southern Africa tended to listen to us more. And we also tried to engage the African Union, particularly the Commission on Human and People's Rights, and also the subcommittees, the Peace and Security Committee on what was happening in Zimbabwe. So perhaps for the Mozambican comrades, they can also look at these opportunities, their linkages. But I would also hazard to add that within with the Zimbabwean example, we failed to fully explain to our Mozambican and Angolan colleagues, mainly because of the language barrier, because I can't speak Portuguese. And colleagues, most of the colleagues I used to interact with when I was in mainstream civil society could barely also speak English, particularly Mozambique and Angola. So on solidarity, there are opportunities, Munjoz, and these opportunities should be fully explored. For example, I don't think there's much clarity about this national dialogue within Mozambique, within civil society in SADC. And I think what can be done by SALO is to try and do a publicity campaign or a communication strategy around what's happening right now around this dialogue. And also the timeline, because the timeline is really, really short. I understand there should be a report towards the end of next year, 2026. And obviously that means a lot of work will be done or needs to be done. And civil society needs to be well-versed. Regional civil society needs to be well-versed on this. And then the other question on organized labor. I don't know. I don't know if organized labor is represented in the groups in Mozambique's dialogue process. But if it is not, it must be involved. It must be involved. It's very, very important, because most of the protests that have been occurring in a number of Southern African countries are urban-based, and in most cases also backed by labor, whether it is informal labor or formal labor, the informal sector or organized trade unions. They are always involved in urban protests. And if they're not involved in any dialogue, it means that dialogue will always eventually be disputed. And then the last question for me that I see there, since we're running out of time, is some young people embrace military coups. I think it's not a fact of lack of understanding of the democratic process. It is more to do with a loss of faith, as indicated in the question. Democracy has to be meaningful. It has to have real results, like Amilcar Cabral, the Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde revolutionary, said. No matter how hot your water, it will not boil your rice. You need a fire. You need to make it meaningful. You need to cook the rice. Even if you put hot water on the rice, without a fire, it will not get ready. So our democracies are essentially too cyclical, and we are not deriving enough meaning from them. And I'll end with another quote from Nyerere that, Nyerere says, we have to be careful about what we mean by democracy within the African context, because sometimes the mechanisms of our democracy are not the meaning of our democracy. And I see a lot of young people now are not as confident in the electoral process because it's not resulting in meaningful life changes, societal changes, economic livelihood changes. And some of them are now more involved in it. And this is something to be cautious about from a civil society perspective, as well as a political party perspective. Some people are now touting values that they do not have. They are touting values in order to make money, in order to be part of the material bandwagon. Because there's a lot more and more political materialism around our elections and even around our civil society activism. And we have to be very much aware of that and how young people are learning that perhaps politics is about money and that civil society is also about money. So we have to be very cautious about that. I'll stop there. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that input. Francisca, we have one more question that is being posed to you in the chat. Sheila has had to leave the meeting for another meeting, but this one is directed
Alright.
specifically at you. I can read it out for you if you want, or do you want to read it? No, let me read it out for you.
Very specific demands. All right, Isidro, thank you for your question. So what are some of the specific demands proposal youth organization advocating to be all right? So we have position paper that we presented. I think David was 3 weeks ago. Oh, David seems that left the meeting, but I think it was 3 weeks ago, and we also presented in the conference, and we are now collecting the contributions from young people using different instruments. One of them is a survey. We are also doing local consultations in the field. But I think that there are four priorities. Let me just check. One of them is regarding let me just check unemployment, because we are collecting actually these contributions. I'm trying to open the document that we have been producing, which we call it youth agenda. So we state some of the young people priorities here. So the first one, as I was saying, is regarding the employment opportunity for employment. At least 84% of the young people who responded to our survey say that they want employment. For example, they are seeking to the companies, private companies, but also the government, to remove the requirement of having experience or 5 years of experience to the requirements for the first opportunity that a young people or a young graduated that is running for a job, for example. So this is one of the this is one of the things that we are advocating for. We are also advocating for the creation of an agency that will address all the issues of young people regarding the access to jobs in formal but also informal markets. We are also advocating so that all the policies regarding access to job and employment can be less, I will say, political, okay? Because in Mozambique, young people they are questioning, for example, how, for example, some of these announcements for you to run a job are really transparent in terms of if you belong to one political party, can you have the same progress at the same level to another young people who belongs to, for example, to determinate political party. So I would say, summarizing, that they are questioning the transparency of how the process is made, and they are demanding for the private but also to the government to be more transparent, to more transparency in the process of recruitment of young people to not governmental but also to the governmental organizations. So I think we think that the creation of an agency to manage this will be very useful and reduce this lack of transparency, or maybe I think it will increase the way young people trust in the process. Once we are believing that it will be great to have an independent agents leading and managing this. The second priority of our four priority is education and technical training. Young people are demanding to have more technical training because many of them have been responded to our survey, and they are saying that unfortunately they are leaving the university without the technical expertise that they need to respond to the professional market. So I think this is one of the most important things that we are advocating to. We are also advocating for security because young people are claiming, unfortunately, our streets are not anymore safe for young people, special for young women. Today, a young woman was killed in Matola, and we are watching this in the 16 days of activism. But we know that every day a young woman can disappear in Maputo, but also we have young people, young male, who are also disappearing or being killed. And we know that after the protests, unfortunately, our neighborhoods are not safe as was until this. So we are working to build peace and security through arts, and we think that the government should include in the curriculum the peace and security, but I think most important, peace building. I think modules during the class, this will help us to build a more safe space in school, but also in our streets, because this must be collective work between the community and also the government. And most important, that I cannot forget to mention regarding security, is Cabo Delgado situation. Young people are really seeking for this to come to end, because it's unsustainable to keep living in this situation. Last priority of that I think it's important to mention here, it's civic participation and and also space. in the table of decisions. Young people are demanding to create space. That's why we created the COP Deny, as we mentioned this morning, saying that we have created a platform of more than 40 organizations that's demanding to be included and take it into account by the court and also by the government. But also we are trying to build different instruments. Lola, can you please, Noemi, can you please help me to reach that agenda da Juventude? I will show you one of the, thank you. I will show you one of the instruments that we made this. We call it Agenda da Juventude, which is young people youth agenda for 2025-2029. This document states all these priorities. Actually, there are 10 priorities, but I will stop here. So it's a document that states the different priorities that young people are demanding. So I think that we are taking this to advocate so that these priorities can be included and take it into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francisco, for that very comprehensive response. And thank you to Takura as well. And then obviously thank you to our other speakers who have had to leave the meeting as well, Sheila and David. I'm now going to hand over to my other colleague, Marissa van Rensburg, just to give us some parting shots, some closing remarks, and to close this meeting. Thank you very much, Marissa.
Thank you, Tebogo. Sorry, I'm not quite parting shots, but I will just keep it simple today. Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you to all our speakers for your thoughtful contributions, and to everyone who joined in the discussion, and those who didn't. We all learned, and I thought it was a very productive discussion. As well as a big thank you to our development partner, the Norwegian People's Aid, NPA, for their support in making this dialogue possible and for their ongoing support for dialogues such as this. Today's exchange has reinforced how central and inclusive and credible dialogue process is to Mozambique's political future, and how essential civil society remains in sustaining that work. The insights shared also remind us that the challenges faced in Mozambique resonate across the region, and that there's value in continuing to draw lessons and strengthen cooperation within SADC as countries navigate their own dialogue efforts. As SALO, we remain committed to creating spaces where diverse actors can engage openly on issues that shape peace, governance, and the protection of civic space. We hope today's session contributes to a deeper understanding of the dialogue process and supports ongoing efforts to ensure that it is participatory and rooted in local needs, as speakers highlighted. And as it's very important that this is not just done in this on the surface level as was raised by speakers, because for nefarious self-seeking ends, as that actually hurts our movement in the region towards a united and prosperous region. So with that being said, go well until we meet again. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we hope to see you at our next public dialogues. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.